Hello and welcome to Bespoke Unit, I'm CP, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing an absolute classic and a personal favourite. It's Habit Rouge by Guerlain. As per usual, we'll be using the Bespoke Unit Fragrance Formula, a quantifiable review matrix that you can use at home for your own reviews. Simply look in the description, you'll find a link which will take you to a guide which teaches you how to use it, as well as providing you with blank PDF versions. Habit Rouge was first released in 1965 and it was created by Jean-Paul Guerlain himself. It has endured all these years, and it was in 2003 that I believe the eau de parfum version was released, which is what we'll be reviewing today. Before I continue, this is a woody oriental amber, and I'll explain the various notes as I go forward. And the batch code on this particular fragrance that I'm reviewing is 0E01. So with all that being said, let's give it a sample. I'll let that cook off briefly. So I'm going to be using the notes that I have on the Bespoke Unit Fragrance Formula, but I'm also going to be comparing them as I progress through the fragrance. So the first thing about this fragrance is the way it gently opens with a balanced delivery of some subtle citrus of bergamot, some fresh basil, and some fragrant rosewood. It's not overbearing, it's not brash, it's refreshing without being bracing. Once you move into the heart, it starts to deliver a more floral bouquet with an accord of rose and jasmine. These are offset by some earthy patchouli and a hint of sandalwood woodiness. What is interesting about the heart, it is at this point that it starts to reveal the powdery aspects of the fragrance, which is very much part of Guerlain's overall DNA. So once in the base, you start to experience the wonderfully musky presence of laudanum, which isn't particularly animalistic. It is a flower after all, so it has more herbaceous profile. This is accompanied by some resinous benzoin, which is quite balsamic in presence. It adds a slight oriental aspect to the overall composition. Meanwhile, some earthy and grassy oak moss plays against some soft vanilla, which adds a sweet element to its overall profile. Although it has a relatively classic and conventional dry down, it has been masterfully put together. The fragrance will go through some seamless transitions between each phase, and you won't really notice them until they are there. As for the weight and strength, admittedly, this isn't going to be the best performing fragrance. Even the eau de parfum version is a little bit understated, we could say. The sillage and projection stay both relatively close to the skin, which isn't a problem depending on how you're going to wear it, and for the different activities that this is best suited for, it's actually quite a good thing, and we're going to talk about that later in the expressions. Meanwhile, the longevity is actually very good. This can last, say you put it on before leaving work, you probably want to top it up early mid-afternoon, so I would suggest taking a travel atomizer with you. When it comes to the overall seasonality of Habit Rouge, you can wear it pretty much throughout the whole year. It's very versatile. I wouldn't wear it in summer or when it's particularly hot because the powdery and balsamic aspects of this fragrance will feel a little bit too heavy. Nevertheless, it can be easily worn throughout fall, winter and early spring. Indeed, it tends to work best between the seasonal transitions, so between autumn and winter and spring. However, you could happily wear it throughout these seasons and feel that it's completely in place. And in fact, although it's best suited for the colder months, what's great about it during spring is that it reflects the season's characteristics with its various floral notes. As for the third-party feedback, while it's true that people could quickly identify that this is not a contemporary or modern fragrance, it has a certain classy and luxurious air about it that makes this completely permissible. A couple of young people who smelled this said, it's not something that I would wear, it's a little bit dated, but they respect it and they say that it's actually really nice and quite elegant. Indeed, it does exude a very distinctive, classy vibe, which is something that Guerlain does very, very well and has done for a number of centuries, and even some of their older releases that can still be worn today do have that same character. As a result, though, it tends to be popular among people in their 30s or above, people in their 20s and teens. This isn't going to be a fragrance that they will particularly appreciate quite as much in a sense of personally liking it, but they may appreciate it and respect what it represents, given that it has a very overtly classy element to it. So now taking a look at the impressions, which is what I mentioned earlier, is how this fragrance could be used. So in terms of age range, this is going to be very versatile for me. I'm in my 30s and I'd say I'm just at the sort of age where I can start to wear this, so I'd say 30s minimum, but it can be worn by any man in any age range after that, so in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, until they are put in a box. This is a fragrance though that is quite mature, so if you're somebody who identifies themselves as quite useful, it's probably not the fragrance for you. Instead, if you like Guerlain, then you'd probably go for L'Homme Idéal, which is their more youthful alternative. In terms of the time of day, as I mentioned earlier, this is a versatile fragrance. You can wear this all day. It's very good for those winter mornings, but it's going to be wonderful during an autumn evening or spring night. As for its occasion, so this is a formal fragrance that you could wear with black tie or white tie. That being said, I would wear it at the office as well. In fact, it's an excellent professional fragrance because of its low sillage and projection. It stays quite close to the skin. You will project a couple of hints of it, but it's not going to be overbearing. And in fact, it has a very clean and elegant profile that is going to deliver the perfect message to your co-workers or clients or superiors, because it is a very elegant and I had a word for this down here, discerning fragrance, which is sensual in the classiest way possible. I don't think that is the best way I could have put it, but the message is certainly there. As for the masculinity, although it's strongly masculine, there are women who wear this, and in fact my wife is one of them, said she'd totally wear this fragrance. So although it does have a certain boldness to it, because this is mostly oriental and balsamic and quite powdery, it will then be compatible with some women who appreciate things like L'Or Bleu or Mitsuku, which are also two very well-known Guerlain fragrances. So now moving on to the overall presentation. So in terms of the bottle, it has a distinctive 1960s look to it. It's quite geometric, quite classic. It's understated, it's not over the top. It's glass with a single little red panel here, and if you hadn't guessed, rouge is red because that is the color scheme that Guerlain have been working with this fragrance. In fact, habit rouge means red item of clothing, or in this context, red jacket. The bottle cap is made out of wood, which is quite nicely put together, and the atomizer works well. It's more focused, quite a thick mist. If you don't press it properly, it can water gun, which is a bit of a disappointment. I hate it when it does that, especially if you just want to put a little bit on, but it will do. When it comes to the packaging, I love the packaging. Although, yes, it screams old-fashioned elegance, it doesn't feel dated whatsoever. The paper has a nice texture to it. There's this classic, I don't know why it's classic, but this very simple silver strip that goes around the whole box. And then finally, when it comes to the value of this fragrance, RRP is quite expensive for it. It's about $80 for a box of 100 ml. However, you can probably get it for about $45 from a few online retailers. There are a few links below in the description where you can find them at the best prices we found. Indeed, this is a timeless fragrance, and it's one of my all-time favourites. It's up there for me with Paco Rabanne pour Homme and Givenchy Gentleman. If you're looking for real classic retro fragrances, this is a must-have that you should certainly have in your collection. However, if you're somebody who's more inclined towards modern fragrances, then perhaps this isn't your best choice. If you're desperate to try something from Guerlain, then I would suggest L'Homme Idéal and probably the Eau de Toilette or the Eau de Parfum. That's all from me today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, head to bespokeunit.com and see more of the other men's lifestyle subjects that we cover on a daily basis. Otherwise, check out our channel, subscribe if you enjoyed it and you want more, and leave us a comment if you have any questions or queries. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Until next time, take care.